first day. It was so hot, so we changed it to 3 hours. We ended up going 3.5 because afterwards we'd do a wrap-up. And at first, we were like, are we really making a difference? Is it impacting? It's not until the end because they're a very shy people and not really expressive, which was a change for the kids who had been with me to Africa. I mean, on the first day, they're like, and it just kind of lasts all week, and they're all over you. Not in Laos. Very reserved, very quiet, but by the end of the week, they were telling us how much they missed us, they're going to miss us, and how much they appreciate it, and so that makes you wonder. I wish we would have been able to stay there longer. But I want to just give some thanks to the team as they go ahead and make their way up here, and just maybe spread these out a little bit here, and just find a place up here, guys. And Lily, I've got one for you too. She was a part of the team. One of the things that was neat with Lily is that there were two students that were assigned to kind of look after her, and she became good buds with them. And the pastor of the church, his kids also attended the camp, and Esther, and I don't remember the name of the other one, but Hannah, they became good friends with Lily, and so I went over there one day to do some stuff on the internet, and Lily was with me, and they just like, oh, Lily, and she was chatting with him and talking with him as if she could speak Laos, Laotian, and it didn't hinder her at all in terms of creating friends, and she would just throw up and talk with people, and so that was just neat to have the whole family together and see Lily being able to join in on that as well. But I just want to give some thanks to the team members, and Jennifer, who wrote the curriculum and put it together, and it was a combination of an English camp and a kind of a VBS model as well, and that was a little different for them because the kids had to shift from room to room, because in Asia it's the teacher who comes to the class, and the students will stay in the same room for the whole day for their school. They don't move from room to room, even in college. So that was sometimes a little confusing, but they worked it out and they figured out what was going on. But Jennifer wrote the curriculum, and it was very simple things that we focused on, all about me, all about my family, and community helpers, and then holidays. And the holidays was the big one as we focused on, and I asked you guys to be in prayer because that's when we shared the gospel. And in each of the classes that I shared, there was only one or maybe two believers. And I'd ask the kids, because I'm doing it very nonchalantly, very carefully as I'm sharing the gospel, and I'm like, have you ever heard this before? And like most of them, no. And so laid out the gospel for them. And one of the interpreters was Christian, and actually her dad so her uncle was the pastor, and so she was, and her brother is the director, and so they're strong believers. And I said, Jenny, the only thing left to do is to pray and ask them to receive Christ. But I said, I can't do that. I said, so I got to leave that to you. And I felt like I'm just one drop in the bucket. And I said, you guys got to now fill it. And she said, we will. And they patiently, slowly reach out to the community. But Jennifer wrote the curriculum, and it went very well. Ben helped out with not only the sports, but also finances. I was always giving him receipts, and he's got probably a stack of them. And also he was really helpful whenever we were traveling throughout the airports and grabbing bags and making sure Lily was getting to where she needed to go, and everybody had to. So I appreciate his help in the organization of that. Krista was in charge of songs, and she also brought her energy and love for the kids, and she had to be flexible when we went from 4 hours to 3 hours because we condensed her class with Jennifer, and so appreciate her flexibility. And Rachel is a natural with the kids, and she helped out with the sports, and she was like a little piper. They were following her around and jumping in, and they were by the end of the week hugging and loving on her. Andrew, he was the star. Yeah, everybody kept saying he's the Justin Bieber. Because everybody wanted a picture, especially the young girls, a picture with him, and they would line up in order to get a picture with him, and they would actually, and then we gave American flags one day for one of the songs, and they wanted him to sign them, and so I think his followers on Instagram went from 80 to 150 overnight. And mainly all those girls now are following him. And Liliana, she was our Goodwill ambassador because you really won't see very many kids with special needs there. And so she was always there with a smile and being able to reach out to those kids and just start talking with them. And even though they, the language of love is communicatable in any language, and that's what she was able to communicate so well. There was also an American there who is with the CMA, Christian Missionary Alliance, and she was very encouraging and flexible with us. She'd been there about 5 years, and so she was able to help us out a lot. We really blessed her a couple days when she brought us donuts. Yeah, that was nice because the French, used to occupy Laos, and so there's still a lot of French influence there. And bless the French bakeries that are still there. And so that was neat. And my job, of course, as team leader was to organize things and keep them flowing, and did the best I could. But I want to thank you from Arise who prayed for us, who sent us off and commissioned us. Your prayers, your support, encouraging notes as I posted things, letting us know you were praying for us really meant a lot. And I remember I had the conversation, I don't remember who it was, but said, I could feel the prayers of people praying for you, and you really can. When it's difficult, when it's challenging, it's hot, and you're wondering what difference you make, knowing that people are praying for you really, really did make a difference. So thank you so much. So we just want you to know we're glad to be home. We missed you guys and appreciate your support for us. So thank you very much. Well, now we're going to hear from the team, and so should we turn the lights now because we don't need that there. So, all right. All right, well, Jennifer, why don't we go ahead and start with you, and what stood out to you or surprised you or had the greatest impact on you as we served in Laos? There you go. Yep.
I think Randy kind of shared a little bit about it. I think I've had the privilege to be on a lot of mission trips growing up. And most of those were in Central South America. And there, the children would just immediately bond with you. And they're hugging on you and loving on you. And there's that instant gratification of what I'm doing is really getting somewhere. And here we spend hours with these kiddos, and they're very polite, very kind of meek, quiet, reserved. And so you sit there and I'm wondering, are you getting any of this? And so I think that was more of a surprise for me in going and spending that week with them. But at the end, when I saw them, a couple of the things there were you're not to touch them, never touch the head. And so I waited for any of them, if they wanted to come up and do a picture or give a hug, I let them do that first. And by the end of the week, that was happening. So it was kind of a long, slow, drawn out versus boom, immediately. It's easy to love those who love you, but it's more difficult to persevere when you're not quite sure what's going on in their minds. So I think that was probably the most surprising to me.
So the most surprising thing to me was this teacher who I had been working with from the day that we had got there, and her name was Tok Tak. And like Mom was saying and Dad was saying, they are so reserved that even a handshake shows that they really trust you. And by the end, she had asked for a hug. And so by the end, we were hugging, and I didn't think I would feel super emotional. And I wasn't super emotional with really anyone else to the point of where I was crying, but Tok Tak started crying, and then I was just gone. I had just felt so much love for her, and I later saw her at church. Was wasn't the next day, it was the day after. And that was a really big step because her family's pretty staunch Buddhist. So that just, it's something I'll keep with me forever. All right, what did you like the most?
I like swimming.
Swimming.
Swimming, okay.
I like to play with friends.
She liked playing with her friend Sunday.
Even in the rain. Came home pretty muddy.
Just to touch on that, Lily was kind of like a little emperor to her helpers. She had like 4 people following her around every time she was doing something, and like she would command them what to do.
Hold your hands.
Yeah, hold your hands, follow me, do this, sit down, we're playing a game. They're like, okay. But they loved her in the end, and so it was really cute. Yeah, we can touch on that later. But for me, I think it goes along with everything that everyone else is saying. My last missions trip was in Uganda, and they're just like such lovable people from the start. Like, you come out, they see you, and they're just yelling Mzungu, which is like white person, but then they like come up and give you hugs and just love on you. But I think there was something so much deeper about their love, because it was so reserved. And in the end, knowing that if they did anything in that way, that it's such a greater love. Like by the end, there were people crying and asking like, is it okay if I give you a hug? And I got like some booklets from some people with just like little sweet notes and drawings. And yeah, I think that was like the biggest surprise, knowing that we had an impact. But
yeah, I would say what stood out to me the most was how really nice and non-confrontational the people of Laos are. Yeah, I don't know, like kind of like what Rachel said, like if they did, I don't know, anything to possibly offend you, they would always try to apologize or make up to you, which was really nice. So yeah.
So something that surprised me was everything, being the fact that I've never been overseas before. Except Lily, all of them have been doing mission work overseas or living overseas. So for me, this was a huge step, a huge difference. Everything was just surprising. The culture was completely different, and to me, it was weird. There was, me. I'm a person that likes to high five and hug and stuff like that, and it was really weird not doing that, and kind of just walking up and being buddy with them. But going off of everybody else, the fact that, at the beginning, they're very quiet, they don't want to talk or touch or anything like that, and near the end, I was close with a lot of the guy helpers, and, we were hugging and taking pictures and stuff like that near the end, and it was just, it was very awesome seeing the change, very moving, knowing that I was able to affect them enough that they were comfortable with me and loved me enough to hug me and be close to me, and that was just a big change, and that was something that surprised me, especially with their culture. So
I think the thing that impacted me was just seeing their commitment to reaching their community through business means and through sports ministry and English camp. They were really doing all they could to reach their community, and doing it in a very wise and diligent way so that the government really would not encroach on what they were trying to do. Well, Ben, why don't we go ahead and start with you and talk about what did you enjoy most about this trip?
I think just the new experience. Getting to do this was not really like, I'm not a teacher, that's not my strong suit, but I really enjoyed the time that I got to spend playing games with the kids. They seemed to really get into them, enjoy them. They picked them up really fast, so we got a lot of time to do them, and it was just a lot of fun. Unfortunately, I hurt my ankle partway through, so I had to watch for the one day, but the time that I did get to play with them and hang out with them, that was probably my favorite thing, just seeing the smiles on their faces and just the time we got to spend, even in that hot heat. We weren't even thinking about that. We were just enjoying the moment, and that's what I enjoyed the most.
Good.
So honestly, the thing I enjoyed the most was the food.
Looking like a good teen.
Yeah. So, the chicken there, we had chicken like every day, and it was fresh fried chicken.
With fries.
Yeah. Yeah, I could have sworn. We had chickens near our hotel, and it looked like one less every day. So.
Didn't notice that, but yeah, you're right. It got quieter.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, that was really nice. But the kids were great too. So.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd have to say, like, just the connections that I've made. Like, I'm still talking with people, and even if they aren't Christian, a lot of the kids were, like, Buddhist. I've already had one person ask, like, what is Christianity, just, like, through text. And, like, knowing that I've made a difference, even if it's just one person's life, like, that's awesome to know. And then as well with the English part, that's nice. Like, some people have been asking, like, can you continue to help me learn some English and just like teach different things? And so just being open to that and making those connections. But.
I like to ride the elephants.
I like to ride the elephants. Well, that was afterwards.
I think the thing I enjoyed most about Laos was, like going off of Rachel, just the relationships that we didn't really think that we could even make in the first place. I mean, you're there for a week. You think in the back of your head, like, I am spending all this time, all this money. Is my week really going to make a difference? But like the continued relationships that I still have with the people that I'm talking to just really showed that a week, a day, a minute can change somebody's life.
For me, I think the highlight was watching my family serve together. And I'd been on many mission trips. Randy's been on many. He's taken the girls a time, and Andrew a time or two. But to be all on the field together and watching them, God use their strengths. And don't get me wrong, there were difficult times, and those were more in the pre-planning stage, but put them out in their areas and just watch them go, and that was pretty exciting to see and to watch.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would say that's what I enjoyed the most too, is just seeing the whole family serve together and seeing their different gifts come out and being used. And I'm excited to see how God will use them in the future. And so that was encouraging to see everyone, and also just seeing Ben, who had never been on the field, act just like he had been there and done it many times. So that was just great to see the team and their serving heart. And also I enjoyed seeing how the people in Laos and the team that we work with there, how really committed they were to try to do what they could to reach people in that circumstance, and to do so in such a very subtle, quiet way. I think that we think in America that we're going to reach more people by the bigger things we do and the noise we make, but there's a lot to be said just with quiet witness, isn't there? And that's what we saw there, and I enjoyed just seeing that aspect of it. So that was encouraging. What was the most challenging for you? Let's start with Jennifer on the trip. It was that you saw that where God was still stretching you. This is or something like, okay, wow, this was an adjustment. If nothing, that's great. But I'm sure there were a few.
What isn't a challenge on the mission trip? I mean, we had heat that was just unbearable at times. Our classrooms were outside, and so we were dripping in sweat. We had language barrier. There was different food, watching out for different bugs and viruses, and making sure that when we showered, we aren't getting our face wet. I mean, it just goes on and on with the challenges, but that's part of being on the field, is you have to be quite flexible and go with the flow, because we had things planned and we had to change them all the time, and so you just do it. And so I think for me that maybe the biggest challenge of all the challenges was the language barrier. As a chatterbox as I am, and a love that I have for people, it was really hard just not to be able to share my heart or hear their heart, because their language level was pretty low. And to carry on a conversation was, for the most part, really difficult. So even when it came time to sharing about our holidays and who Jesus is, I felt like there was a lot of times there was some blank faces, and so we used an interpreter, and things get lost with the interpreter. So I think that was probably the hardest for me is just not being able to speak to them directly in a way that they would understand.
So the biggest challenge for me was just being, really dying to myself. Like, it's not about what I want. I am just a vessel for God to be shooting out through me. So when things didn't go the way I would like them to, just keeping in reminder, this isn't about me. This has nothing to do with me. This has everything to do with the Lord moving, and just trying to get them to understand Christ and who He is. And you can't show Christ and who He is if you're so pessimistic and breaking the culture barriers of saying, well, I don't think we should do it that way, to your leader or anything. But yeah, that was the biggest challenge.
Sisters.
Sister? The biggest challenge was her sisters. Lily.
She's honest.
It would be motivation. It's hard to get up out of bed when it's a different time zone, and it's 105 degrees out with 100% humidity in their dry season. So that was
It's a monsoon season.
I guess, and raining too. So, and with Ben, Andrew, and I being outside for 3 hours a day, and each time, running around with each group of kids, showing that same happiness and joy to be there. It's very draining. But yeah, I think, and along with these skirts, having to wear skirts every day was rough. I'm not a skirt person, but yeah.
The most challenging thing for me was trying to teach the kids who didn't really want to learn, and we experienced this a little bit when we were trying to do some of the plays and stuff. And the kids, half of them would just go off and start playing soccer on the other field, and so we had to find a way to get them to learn and whatnot, and then
So obviously, there's a lot of challenges that we all had, and I think each of us probably experienced that. I think the biggest one for me was, as Pastor was saying earlier, this wasn't just an English camp. They also had their church organization, their sports organization. And I think one of the biggest things was, since we were on the soccer field, we had to deal with finding ways to get around the sports that they host there. The one day they had this huge long tournament that went until 3, 4 o'clock. And we had to find a different area to hang out in. We had to find different games on the fly because we prepared, but the facility was smaller than we expected. So Rachel did a great job with making up some random games on the fly. Literally just clapping games where they just follow our claps. We experienced a lot of that. Every day at 5, they had a soccer team would practice, so we'd have to make sure we're off by then. It was just a lot of work trying to work around that and switching up our entire plan that we had some days because we had to move around based on what they had for us. So that was probably the biggest challenge for me. That, and every once in a while, I would be the one to have to run off and get Lily from climbing on the net. She decided to climb up, and nobody could get her down, so I had to run over and pull her off. But, she was just having a lot of fun. And the bidet, she decided to shower herself with that. Yeah, completely soaked. Smells horrible, but we laughed, and she didn't like that. But she was awesome though.
Yeah, I was always wondering what is Lily into next. So, Yeah, I think the biggest challenge for me, I enjoyed everything. It was wonderful. I think the biggest challenge is moving from the role of team leader, because this is the first missions trip, and I've done numerous trips. First time where I've had the whole family with me. First time that Jennifer's been able to go with me. And so moving from that role of team leader to husband and also parent, that was probably a biggest challenge for me. And so I had to eat a lot of humble pie many times and going and saying, I'm sorry, because it's like, okay, as a team, this is what you're supposed to do, but you're acting more like our family member, and our challenge is there. And so that was challenging for me. But, God used that to humble me. And there's times where while everybody else was sleeping, I'd just go spend time in prayer. And then while I was out there praying, we had wonderful rooms and had air conditioning. That was great. But we learned that this hotel was used for other things than just for us staying there, and where the rooms were rented by the hour. And so that was a challenge. So I just began to pray for that. And even the school that we worked with, they didn't know about that either. So we probably wouldn't recommend them staying there in the future. But the rooms were great. And we had no problem in that respect. But it was just uncomfortable having your family in that environment, and that was a surprise. I never did expect that. Oh, yeah, just challenging things like just having breakfast there is a challenge, because they normally don't eat a big breakfast. Their big meals are like lunch and dinner, and so we went out, and they don't drink milk much, and so we thought simple, easy, just cereal. Well, they don't drink much, and then cereal they don't do much, and so, but we went out and got some cereal, got some milk, and I put it in the refrigerator there, and I said, can I keep it in there? Yep, no problem. Well, I got up in the morning, and the refrigerator's off. Well, they turned the refrigerator off around midnight or so, and they don't turn it back on until the morning. Like, you gotta be kidding! And so that was a challenge. Just keep the refrigerator on. To be able to have breakfast. It's like, you gotta be kidding. That was just, I couldn't believe that. So that was a little bit of a surprise and a challenge for me. But, oh my gosh, yes, because the hotel, they spoke no English. So, I tried to explain to them I need a bowl every morning, the same thing. We'd come the same time. It's the same room we're using, and we had to go and gather. It's like start over fresh, to go find the spoons, go find the bowls, go find the cups, and they just like, and had to trying to explain to them a bowl, and then the first day I realized that, I said, this to cut something. Well, they brought me scissors. I know I needed a knife. And so, just so I would usually go a half hour or so before breakfast time just to try to get it set up so the team could come and make sure they turned the air conditioner on, because it was hot in that room, and it was hot everywhere. But and you'd think by the third day at least they'd get it. No, just like, okay, whatever. But yeah. Well, what did God teach you, or you felt God showed you was important on this missions trip? Why don't we start with you, Jennifer? What did God teach you, or you felt God showed you was important on this missions trip?
All right. Well, that's a loaded question. And so I was kind of thinking about that and praying about that this morning. What exactly, there's so much you take away from a missions trip. But I think one of the things that really stood out to me is as I look around the country, and I just downloaded the pictures this morning, so I think I have somewhere around 1,000 pictures. And I just tried to snap everything, because we had lived in Asia for so long, and I didn't do that when we lived there because it was just part of life. And this time I thought I'm going to make sure and just document everything. And, I watched children and families ride by on scooters. We would just be mortified here with a toddler sitting on the back of the motorcycle, and they're just driving down the road, and
3 or 4 even.
And tons and tons, hundreds of wires, everything, all the electricity, none of it's buried. It just hangs there from building to building, and you walk under it at times, and it's a bird's nest. And And you think, oh my goodness. So you look at the country and the filth and the corruption that's there is just keeping it to the third world status. And I think really when it's all said and done, it's people, and that the countries may be the same, but the people are still the same. And, my prayer all along has been that, Lord, help me to see them as you see them. And, as I look into the faces of each one of the kiddos that we had the privilege to work with this on our trip, and I think here in America, we are bombarded with, there's a church on every corner, there's radio stations, there's TV programs, there's people around you who freely express their opinion about being a Christian. And there's no reason someone shouldn't or couldn't become a Christian here. I mean, it's just, there's no excuse. But there, when you step back into a country where Buddhism is prevalent, and there are, especially up in the northern part of Laos, it is very difficult to be a Christian. And homes are taken away, land's taken away, which means livelihoods taken away. And when I look at the faces of these kiddos, and I think they need Jesus, and there's no one there to tell them about Jesus. Here we have no excuse, and there they have nobody to really tell them. And even when they do, it's a cultural thing not to become a Christian. So the verse that really just kind of stood out to me is in Romans, and it's Romans 10. For the scripture says, whoever believes in him will not be disappointed. For there is no distinction between Jew or Greek, Lao or American, for they're all the same. For the Lord is Lord of them all, abundantly enriches for all who call upon him. Whoever will call upon him, the Lord will be saved. How then shall they call upon him whom they have not believed? And how shall they believe in him who they have not heard? And how shall they hear without a preacher? And how shall they preach unless they are sent? Just as it is written, how beautiful are the feet of those who bring the good news. And so I think just a beautiful reminder of the freedom and the abilities that we have here, and to reach out to people, but yet also for the people of Laos who it makes me sad to think of any one of them dying and not knowing the Lord and spending eternity away from him. So I think that was kind of the weight that I carried on my heart being there. And so I'm really excited to see that so many of our kids have, and I've hooked up with some of them on Facebook, and know that we can continue to minister to them even though we are here thousands of miles away, through messaging and conversations, that will continue on. And and that we can keep praying for them. So just that people are people no matter where they're at. Their place may change, but who they are, a child of God, has not.
Yeah, pray for us. We've all got friend requests on Instagram and Facebook from many of the kids. So
I think what God was really teaching me in Laos was patience. That not everything's gonna go your way, and I've felt like a lot of that super recently. I can't control if I'm gonna dislocate my hip on the ride home and the stewardess has to help me put it back, or if it's gonna be 105 degrees. You just go with it, and so you die to yourself. And I think that was what was just so impactful. And I feel like if I really did that, I really felt connections and relationships with others. So, what did God teach you? What?
God makes me happy.
God makes me happy.
No.
Yeah.
I have one. I think just kind of the theme that we've been talking about, like to trust God, because initially, like I did not feel like I had an impact or made an impact at all. I felt like I was just going there and teaching them some English, and 'cause especially doing games, it's hard to involve God with games. So we did like a story of Jonah and then played like Fish in the Sea. And so just like trusting God that there was an impact that was being made, and knowing that it's not always the goal to just go in there and like scream Jesus' name, but like to lead by example, to just show like I'm a Christian by my actions, like by how I treat you, by me being here. So just kind of like showing that was just great to see that. And in the end, we were rewarded in full with the amount of like hugs and cards and gifts that we were given, and how much of a blessing they were when we were going there to be a blessing.
So two main things that I feel like God really taught me was that preaching the Word of God comes in so many different ways. Krista did it with arts and crafts. No, actually, my mother did that with arts and crafts. Krista did that with songs. Dad did that with teaching. And Ben, Rachel, and myself all did that with games. And so, yeah, that was just really cool. Also, adapting and overcoming. That was one big thing that we had to do a lot while being there. So whether it was like the weather or game didn't really work out, or yeah.
I think the biggest thing for me was I think God sometimes told me to just stop thinking. I'm constantly thinking. I always have thoughts. And the biggest thing for me was, I was thinking so much about what's going on that I wasn't seeing the big picture sometimes. The first day we go in there and the kids weren't really responding as much as I thought they would. They didn't show the love because of their culture. And it was weird. I didn't feel like I was making an impact. Sometimes, I was frustrated. I'm looking at this from my view. And, throughout the week, it just seemed like God was sitting there saying, stop worrying about what you see. If he didn't want us there, he wouldn't have got us there. He wanted us there for a reason. Whether I'm actually helping them learn English, whether they're learning God because of me, whether they stay in touch with me 10 years down the road, it doesn't matter. We had a reason to go there. And that was to help this, to help the Evangelical Free Church, to help their English camp. That was our main goals. And everything else that came along was just a bonus. I went in thinking, I want these kids to love me. And whether they did or not, I needed to realize that God has that plan. God has this bigger idea. And maybe we're just a stepping stone for something else, or maybe we make the impact that I was thinking. But the biggest thing for me was to stop worrying about what I see and start worrying about what God sees and what his plan is. To stop realizing that I don't know what's going on all the time, that God has that control. And, something that was really impactful was this morning when I was driving here, Chris and I were listening to the radio, and, it's just a good reminder that it's not just about missions trips, it's about overall. The guy that was talking on there was saying that, some nights he wakes up and he's worried and he's scared and he's trying to figure things out, and he realizes, it doesn't matter what time it is, right at this moment I can't figure it out, I got to give that to God. I got to, visualize handing it to him and saying, look, God, there are certain things I can't control. And I think, especially hearing that this morning was a huge thing for me, knowing that, that was how I felt a lot during the missions trip, but it's my entire life. That there's a lot of things that I can't control. There's a lot of things that I won't know what's going on. I just got to give it to him and trust him and believe that he knows what he's doing, and that, he's got love, and everything's going to work out because he has a plan. And that was probably the biggest thing that he taught me.
Wonderful. And yeah, just to wrap it up then, I think the thing that God was teaching me is the importance of endurance and patience, and to realize that God has the bigger plan, and that we just need to remain faithful and serve him, even if we don't understand all the details of things that are going on around us. But God calls us to be faithful. And that's what I think we're recognizing, the importance of remaining faithful to what God had called us to do, And because as I would pray, that God just gave me that image, and I shared it with some of the folks in Laos as well, the Christian director and his sister, is that I feel like God was just using this as one drop in a bucket, and yet they had to continue the work of filling that up into their spiritual life. And so, and I remember Joe saying, we will. And all the resources that you guys donated and we gave to them, they put them to work right away. He says, this is going to be enough resources for a year, and we'll use it wisely and be good stewards of it. However, the stars that we gave them, they put them to work right away. I went in there, because I was trying to do some things on the internet, and that's the only place I could get internet. And he took these little sticky stars, and they put them all up over the wall. And then the pencils that were given and the little popsicle sticks, they were gluing them together and creating things to be able to put all the pencils in, and just being able to use those resources so that we know, and he said many times, the impact that you had will last a long time. We'll remember this. And that's what's encouraging, because they're not so expressive people, but when they do share that, you know that, okay, they're going to use it, and God's going to be glorified, and that it did make a difference. And so that was what is encouraging to us. So I'm going to go ahead and, yes.
I just wanted to say, and there was this little girl, and her name was Monk, right?
Yeah, go back to one slide. I actually got a picture of her. Everybody.
She's the little girl holding the flag. There she is.
She's everybody's favorite.
So she was like our little mascot the whole week. She was she was the youngest one that we had there. She was only just turned 4, and her parents had sent her with her older sister. And she didn't really talk a lot, but when she opened her mouth, you could see her
Rotted teeth.
Yeah, so her teeth had rotted in. There was just so many cavities. So when we went over the flossing and arts and crafts with Mom, I was really taking the time, show what we do. So toothbrushes and all their supplies. They didn't even have enough room for all their supplies in their little
We had
office.
toothbrushes left over, which was good.
Yeah, we had a ton of toothbrushes. Some kids got 2 toothbrushes. So just thank you so much for all of your donations. I know a pair of scissors doesn't seem like too much, but to them, a pair of scissors is just amazing. And to TSA, a pair of scissors isn't.
Yeah, I got my scissors taken away because apparently it's a weapon.
Yeah, she came back with a couple of scissors in her bag. I'm like, what are you doing? Let's leave those behind. But they're in her bag. You did a little bit of a collage together. Is that in the back? So yeah, so if you want to see a collage that Rachel's put together, some of the pictures. But let's just give a hand of appreciation to the team. Yeah. So thanks, you guys. And while they're making their way down, I just want to show you 2 things. One, this was one of the projects for the day, and actually our international student, Aya, she did this pictures for us for family. And then I've got some of these all set in the back for you to see that they did their family as well. And that was a good way for us to get to know their family. And as they drew these pictures, and this is my family. There are 4 people in my family. We like to go to the forest together. I love my family. And each family did that, and that gave us an opportunity to kind of get to know them and their family as well. And then as a way of appreciation, they gave us this very official looking thing here that says, Master 7 English Center Certificate of Appreciation. We appreciate your effort in organizing Master 7 camp on July 13th to the 9th to the 13th. 2018, and signed by the director and the administrator. So a very official ceremony, and then we had the very official certificates that we gave them, and they really appreciated them. So all of it from beginning to end went very well, and we just appreciate your support for that.
So this is one of the main projects that we made in arts and crafts, and they're really good artists. And they don't really get an opportunity to draw very often. So when they had colored pencils and markers and all sorts of things to draw their own hand, they enjoyed it so much. So this will be on the back, but we made 3 of these. 4.
And they had one when they put up the stars. They also put one of those up in their office.
Yeah. So we this is the one that we've kept, and it just shows their personality. One girl drew that she wanted to be a policeman. One girl drew her hometown, and you can see their houses are just so completely different. They're on stilts. And this one, just really, really beautiful artists, and that's another way to show God's love through art.
One kid drew it and had marijuana leaves on it. We don't know where he got that idea from. We didn't put that one on there. Yes. So I mean, you see some strange things. I saw this lady walk around with a New York Yankees hat, and like, where would you get that? So here, Chris, if you'd put those back there too, for people to see. But anyway, that's about all I want to be able to share with you. Hope you enjoyed that, and just thank you again for your support and encouragement and prayers. Oh, I'm sorry. We have a video that Rachel had worked on putting together. So kind of gives you an overview of the trip, and it's about 7 minutes long. So let that roll.
All together on her cell phone. So.
Yeah. So I'm looking forward to seeing it myself.
Could a garden come up from this ground at all? spring.